Hello, and welcome to another edition of One Bad Veggies Root Beer Review, where in this review, we'll find out if this root beer rocks or if it'll have us seeing red. I apologize, not every single intro joke is going to be a banger, but no, this review is going to be for Red Rock Root Beer, which I have never had before. So it's always interesting, and there's usually not a whole lot to say before I get into the root beer itself when it's something brand new. The things I will say is that it was kind of hard to find any information about the root beer itself. Sometimes I like to look into maybe if they have a website or something like that to give a little history. And the other thing too, something interesting I did find out is Red Rock has been around for a long time. It's been around since 1885 according to the bottle. And the interesting thing that I learned today was that sometimes with root beers, if you have an older recipe that you've been using for a long time, sometimes it's actually preferred to try warm or at room temperature, I should say, because back in 1885 they didn't have a simple way to cool drinks, so a lot of times people just drank their drinks at room temperature. I thought this was super interesting. Now, that's not going to change the way that I review these because I think most modern root beers would probably, the way that they're made is probably more conducive towards using something or drinking it cold. So that's not going to really change the way I would, but it is something to think about, and I just thought it was an interesting piece of history that I didn't know about root beer. So I've never seen it mentioned on other review sites and stuff like that before. So just interesting stuff. So, but besides that, let's go ahead and get into the ingredients. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the ingredients, which should be appearing right here. And let's go ahead and just get straight into the bottle. You can see that with this one, as far as the ingredients go, very simple stuff. The only thing I find really super interesting about the ingredients is that the preservatives are listed above the natural and artificial flavors. And as far as that goes, the reason I find that interesting is because it's my understanding that a lot of times when it comes to ingredients, the stuff that there is the most of is listed higher on the ingredients list than the stuff that's towards the bottom. So the fact that there's more preservatives in it than there are flavors, flavors added to it, is an interesting choice. But otherwise, you can see very simple, sweetened with pure cane sugar, premium root beer since 1885, Atlanta, Georgia. Very simple. It's even got like a rip-off, like Enjoy Coca-Cola logo up at the top of it, but not a whole lot to say about this one. It's very simple. I will say that here, let me go ahead and spin it around real quick. The back of it, I find that a lot of root beers have very simplified nutritional facts, especially the premium and the premium sort of root beers that come in a bottle and stuff like that. I find that they have very simplified nutritional facts and ingredients list. The ingredients list is way down at the bottom. There's a little tiny print at the bottom. Usually the ingredients list is a little bit bigger too. It gives me kind of the idea that maybe in Atlanta that let's spin it back around. That in Atlanta, maybe this is a very, like, you could go to a gas station and get a bottle of this stuff, like that it's more mass produced down there than maybe in the rest of the states, because it just kind of I don't know how to put it, like I know that the front label isn't very flashy, but the back label is flashy, if that makes sense. So just something interesting. I honestly have no idea. These are just presumptions that I'm making on my own, but it just kind of gives me the idea that maybe that's a possibility. So anyway, let's go ahead and crack it open and get ourselves a little bit of the scent. All right, let's go ahead and crack it open. It is a faint scent, strangely enough. It is Very strange. You know, usually you're kind of hitting the face real fast with the scent, either it being sugary or rooty or um, you know, herby, anise, any of those things. You're usually hit right in the face with it right away. Even sweetness, like just from sugar, it's kind of weird. I don't get any of those things. There's the slightest hint of sweetness. I mean, you can kind of smell just like a normal root beer sort of flavor, but man, it is hidden in the bottle. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, as far as just any kind of like hidden sense of, you know, like vanilla or any other kind of like flavors that might be a part of the underlying flavor of it. Nothing like that. Nothing really. So we're gonna just go ahead and get into the pour and the foam and see how it looks. Look, sometimes we make mistakes. In this case, I had the wrong camera up when I did the pour and the foam on this one, and I apologize. However, I will say that one of the things that I had mentioned when I was starting to do it is that in other reviews that I had seen of this root beer in the past, they had mentioned that it's more fizzy than foamy. And I gotta say, there was more foam than I expected. There was enough foam when I poured it that I was able to get a taste. You know, kind of, you know, your average flavorless, almost like bitter affair kind of going on there. So nothing crazy to say about the foam, but there was about, I mean, you can see right about here, like the foam got up to about there. So not particularly high foam or anything like that, but you know, it was more foamy than I thought it was going to be, all things considered, considering that most people say that it had no foam at all, that it was just more fizzy than foamy. So again, sorry I missed out on it. You know, it's an important part of the review. I mean, not a super important part of the review. It's more there for the aesthetics of it. But if you're looking for an aesthetically pleasing root beer, I wouldn't necessarily say that Red Rock would have been one of them, because again, it had foam, but it wasn't super high foam. It was long enough lasting that I got to taste it. So take with that what you will. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the taste test. All right, bombs up. All right, how to talk about this one? I like it. It's good. That's more for the grade. The flavor itself. You know, sometimes I talk about these root beers that don't do anything particularly special, but they just end up being very, very, very good at what they're doing. Okay. This definitely leans into that big time. I will say that it is much more on the rooty side than the creamy side. It has a very good bite to it. It's got I actually really like the bite to it, and you know, we never really talk about what bite means. To me, bite means that there's a certain amount of sharpness that kind of comes from a mixture of the carbonation and the flavors, and not bitterness, because you know, you don't want your root beers to be bitter, but there's something on the back of your tongue that kind of like tells you like, oh, this has a bite to it. And this root beer Red Rock has a good bite to it. Like better than a lot of ones, because yeah, when you have a creamy root beer, usually creamy root beers don't tend to and just to define that for a moment, creamy root beers are stuff that kind of lean more towards like the vanilla, and they're kind of not super carbonated, you know. When you have a more creamy root beer, you don't have a lot of bite. And it's not necessarily that I prefer or do not prefer a bite. In fact, most of the times I'd probably say I don't prefer it, because if I just prefer creamy root beers over more rooty root beers. But you know, I'm kind of getting in the weeds with this one, because honestly, there's not a whole lot that I have to say about it. Like I said, this one definitely sits on the rooty side. Sometimes I will describe a root beer as fruity, and this is kind of that too. Rooty, fruity, almost kind of flavor to it that some root beers have. It's very sweet. I will say that it's a very sweet root beer. It's good though. It's just very good. It's just a tasty root beer. And again, these kind of root beers usually make me struggle the most on what I'm going to grade them, because when I have technically nothing bad to say about them, it's like, how do you review something like that? So I'm gonna go ahead and sit down with this one and then come back with that review. So this is another one of those reviews where I'm sitting here and I'm struggling, not because I necessarily think it's bad, but because I think it's good, right? Where the struggle isn't what kind of low grade do I give this? Do I give it a low grade or a high grade? No, the struggle is do I give it a B or a C? It's not an A, first off. No, it's not an A. So that's not the argument here. The argument is you know, C's I like to keep for standard good root beers. B I like to give it for something that goes a little bit above and beyond that, standard but better. And I think, because I'm thinking about this in that way, and you know, this one is, I think, is very good at what it does, being a kind of standard rooty with a bite root beer. So I think I am going to give it a B, because I think it's just better at doing its thing than a lot of other root beers, especially with that little bit of a bite to it. I think that kind of changed my mind too, because I like that, especially when you have something that's not too heavy on the vanilla and stuff like that, something that's more based on kind of the rooty traditions, the herbal kind of traditions of a classic root beer, which, you know, on the bottle it says it's been since 1885, which means it definitely is a classically flavored probably root beer, and it's probably closer to what your old sarsaparillas and stuff would taste like. So it makes a lot of sense that it would have a more root based flavor, that fruity kind of interesting flavor that a lot of root beers have. So but like I said, it's I think it's because it's not overpowering in those flavors, and because it's still sweeter than a lot of root beers that kind of go that way, go that more kind of natural original sort of flavor, that pushes it over from a C to a B for me. So yeah, B. So that's it for this one. Of course, as always, like or subscribe or comment, or don't do any of those things and just enjoy the videos. And other than that, check me out on all the things, which I think I'll start putting at the end here. And hope you had a good time.